Hey, Facebook Live, I'm back. Took a week off last week just to recalibrate and reschedule, actually, doing a completely new format for Facebook Lives that you are going to enjoy, not this week, but beginning next week. Now that it's time for the week preview and the highlights from last week, and I'm happy to take any questions. If you just let me know where you're watching from, say hi. If you're enjoying your Monday lunch right now, can I just say how blessed and lucky I am to be able to do this podcast, be able to talk with the caliber of people that I get to talk to every single day. It is so exciting. It's really a great time. So let's get right into it. I am going to be sharing and it's kind of a lighter week this week just because I'm winding down for the month of June. This is the last week in June. So we're only doing 7 interviews on, I think it's Wednesday the 27th. So that is an extremely lightweight week here at Be The Talk, yet you're still going to be able to enjoy it. And then coming up next week, right after the 4th of July, next Thursday, we will be starting with our new format, and we're also going to have a lighter week next week, not so much because of the holiday, but because of the new format. We're going to have a talk show format, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and I want to make sure that I'm not putting too much on my own plate in this new format, but it's going to allow us to get even more accomplished, be able to tell more people's stories. So I am excited about that. Who am I talking to? Who are we going to be talking to this week? It is going to rock and roll because Sarah Baker Andrus from right down the street here, Wilmington University, TEDx Wilmington University, is going to be talking about how to get gainful employment. I'm just pulling everything up here. She's going to talk about the job hunt is dead, and she has some really great packed with value advice. She has 3 questions that if you start asking these questions, that you're going to be able to land a job. You're going to have gainful employment, and she has these 3 magic questions that she talks about. After that, we are going to be talking to Sunny Slaughter. Now, Sunny is amazing because you watch her talk, and her name is Sunny, but it's very, very serious subject matter. It's very crucial subject matter, has to do with human trafficking. Sunny Slaughter came through just devastating personal story in her family, betrayal, children involved, a former spouse involved, or I'll find out. I'm assuming it's a former spouse involved. And Sunny took that, really, you could say, kind of a slaughter of what happened in her family. I'm being, extra, I guess, playing on words, playing on her name. She really came through a very devastating situation, and she found a way to bring good out of it. So the powerful thing that happened as a result is that she helped change or put on the books human trafficking laws in the state of Alabama out of this horrible tragedy. She had one thing happen to her and her family, and then she thought about, well, what about everybody else out there? And laws were passed. I talk about why I do this podcast. I talk about why isn't this a monthly podcast? People ask me, why isn't it a weekly podcast? Why are you working 7 times harder than the person that's doing the weekly podcast? It's because there are over 100,000 branded speakers, branded talk alumni. I'm never going to be able to get to the bottom of their backstories, but I want to get more than 50 of these a year out. Why do I do this? It's because I want people like Sunny telling her story, because her talk truly did change the world. Just like episode 001, Lefford Fate, gave a talk on incarcerations and mental health and ended up the state of South Carolina, almost right next door to Alabama, a couple of states in between, changed their laws to make for a more humane incarceration and rehabilitation process because of Lefford's talk. Same thing with Sunny Slaughter. I am looking forward. She's the second one up. After that, we have Kate Nicholson. And which, this is so hard because I don't have my everything, I don't have everything set up with the right things. So by process of elimination here, I believe her talk, Kate's talk, well, I can just click on what I have right here. I'm clicking on it. Here it is. Okay. Yeah. What happens when we undertreat pain? What happens or what we lose when we undertreat pain? Now, this is a really sensitive talk as well. This is coming from a very interesting perspective. She's a former prosecutor. She's a legal professional. She has dealt with 2 decades of debilitating, basically working on her back because of a surgery gone wrong. And fighting off and really fighting off before she ever took pain medications prescribed from her physician. She did not want to go on the pain meds and basically staved it off for 20 years. I may be getting the story a little bit distorted here, but basically she said no, 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 and then it got so debilitating that she couldn't even work anymore, and then she finally began taking, in a prescribed way, in a very careful way, started taking these medications to manage her pain. And guess what happened? Okay, good things happen, not bad things. 3%, less than 3%, she shares in her talk, of pain medications that are prescribed are abused and taken the wrong way. And those are the cases that we hear about in the opioid crisis. Less than 3%. The other 97.5% are legitimate cases of people who have a legitimate need, having a legitimate prescription from a legitimate physician, and it legitimately helps them to certain degrees. And in Kate's case, helped her to a very, very high degree, to the point where she was able to function, she was able to do all kinds of great things. So her talk is very, very interesting because it goes in the face of all of the legitimate horror stories that we also hear, and they are, there's an opioid crisis, and then there's a race dimension that apparently, from everything that I see is there, because we prosecute people different if they have an opioid issue rather than crack or cocaine or other drugs that are not prescribed, because you look at the different dynamics, and that's really another place and time. But I just want to let you know that I'm aware of some of those things that may come into the conversation, just because I like to get context and I like to, try to get the expertise of the people that I'm talking to, especially if they're in the legal field. But I find this very interesting because this is someone who is a lawyer who has been really I'll just say a victim of a surgery that was not completely successful. There were complications, big complications in Kate's case, yet she's really defending the legitimate use of pain medicine and even defending, pain management doctors and people like that. And I just love it because this is from, the expertise of a legal expert, and usually it's the lawyers and the doctors, and they're on opposite sides of the table. So this is one of those situations where I just feel like a really well-balanced talk. I'm looking forward to really delving in to Kate's expertise. After this, we have Natasha Sharma. And Natasha talks really about emotional intelligence. I am looking forward to Natasha's talk. Her talk is called Why What We Feel Matters More Than What We Think. And we're going to go behind that talk. Again, when I list off somebody's talk in the preview or the review, you can look them up right now on YouTube and watch their branded talk, usually a TED Talk or TEDx talk. You can look that up right now. You do not need to wait for me to do the interview. You should actually look up and watch the talk so that you can be better prepared to enjoy the backstory, because we don't talk, they don't recap. I do a 2-minute recap of their talk, and then we move on. You know why? Because I watch the YouTube. You can watch the YouTube. They studied and prepared. Whoops, I bumped my desk there. Sorry, everybody. Studied and prepared and did all kinds of work to be able to make that happen. You can go into that backstory, and you can also be able to go deeper with me in there. So it's so important right there. Hey, little note here from my neighbor Rich from 20 years ago. You are the man. Well, hey, you are the man, Rich. And in a moment, you're going to want to hear the newest winner of the 1,000 Views Club, because you must have been taking a nap last time that I did this, Rich, because this is right up your alley. You're going to check this out, my friend. All right, who do we have after Kate? I am trying to find. Okay, here we go. If you could only see my screen, and I'm not sharing my screen because I have people's phone numbers and all kinds of sensitive material. I'm not going to broadcast out on a Facebook Live and make enemies really, really quick. So emotional intelligence trumps intellectual intelligence. That's Natasha Sharma's talk. After this, we have our second TED alumni on Be The Talk. Last time we talked, and I'll recap Becky Blanton's talk in a few minutes for the highlights. So I interviewed our first TED alumni, not a TEDx like me or really pretty much everybody else I've interviewed so far, but this is our second TED alumni, Azim Khamisa, and he talks about the power of forgiveness. And this is a powerful talk because, what comes after tragedy? Forgiveness, okay? Azim's grandson was murdered as part of a gang initiation. What is very interesting about this talk, in addition to being a TED Talk with over 1 million views in under a year, because it was at the 2017 Women's Conference. So I think that was only about 6-7 months ago. It's got over 1 million views already. What is powerful about this TED Talk is the grandfather of the gentleman who was being initiated in the gang who killed Azim's grandson is also giving. It is a TED Talk, okay? We're talking with Azim and not Felix, but we are going to be talking behind this talk, and it is a powerful talk. It's about the power of meditation. It's the power of forgiveness, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to center around that forgiveness piece, and we're going to talk a little bit about meditation, but we're going to really center on the key piece, which is forgiveness. And I whenever I do these interviews, I mean, just to take you behind the talk, Be The Talk, behind Be The Talk. When I do these interviews, I want to bring people together, okay? I'm kind of doing the opposite of Fox News. I'm doing the opposite of MSNBC or whatever your favorite polarized, for-profit news outlet is, okay? They're trying to get us to pick a side and then feed us all of the little goodies that we have, half-aware biases towards or against, and they're trying to bait us with those things that we're half aware of or completely unaware of, okay? They're trying to drive a wedge, and they're doing it because they make money, and they're basically playing all of us, okay? So I'm trying to bring us all together, okay? In the words of, well, I'm not going to quote, but it's that quote, can't we all get along, okay? I want to bring us all together, all right? And that means that whenever possible, if I'm tempted, okay, as a podcast interviewer, if I'm tempted to take a cheap joke or make a cheap shot, I'm not going to do that. I'm bringing people together. I'm trying to respect everyone that I'm interviewing because they're taking the valuable time in coming on the talk, okay? So we're centering on, my point is, we're talking about forgiveness in this talk, and Azim is, I believe, Muslim, and Felix, who's the other person that gave the talk, who are good friends, who also both meditate, he is a Southern Baptist, okay? What can we both center around, okay? Maybe, and they were centered around meditation. We'll talk about that. But I really want to play up forgiveness, okay? Because that's what we need in this world, in my opinion. We need people of faith, of all stripes of faith, okay? And you know, you can't, doesn't mean that you don't have, you know, a faith tradition or even believe in an absolute truth, but you've got to also be aware that things appear to be very relative in this world, meaning that people can choose their own way and people have the power to choose, you know, their own tradition. So, you know, this is not a soapbox podcast. This is rather a bringing people together and finding as many points of unity and agreement as we can. Okay, that's what this is about. That's what they did on this TED Talk, and I'm just really honored to have Azim Khamisa coming on the talk as our second TED alumni of the big stage, the really big stage. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Who do we have next? We have Janet Carlson after that, and Janet is talking about, I think this may be the one where I don't have it on my list for whatever reason. I am looking up the title right here. How can pharma waste go from problem to solution? Now, that's going to be a lot of fun because obviously another healthcare related talk. This one somehow, when I download my playlist, somehow this one got skipped. That's why I do this 2 days prior, because I completely did not see this interview since I first invited her to come on Be The Talk. So I'm going to refresh my memory. Janet, thanks for forgiving me on this. Janet Carlson on Be The Talk in a couple of days. It's going to be great. Alan Heap after that. Alan Heap is going to be a lot of fun because he talks about the role of the fool, the court jester. I think one of the modern actors, Russell Brand, was mentioned in his talk. I think he didn't. I don't know that he mentioned Borat or some of these people, but we have these foolish people that kind of flaunt conventions and do interesting things, and his talk is called "It's Engagement, You Fool." And so, I mean, it's about engagement, but it's also about the role of the fool and what the fool did in the King's Court and, you know, through history and all of that. So, going to be a lot of fun. I am looking forward to having you on the talk, Alan. And then finally, we're going to have Sarri Gilman. She's doing some premium content with me, and she's gave her talk on boundaries, and we interviewed her on boundaries. I believe her talk may be going, or her podcast episode may be going live this week, but I have her down for some premium recorded content with me, and we may or probably may not be Facebook Living that, but later on we have Ruthann Russo. Now, she has 4 terminal degrees, a brilliant guest on Be The Talk, and another personal story about, where is it here? Your role in reimagining healthcare. From a personal story of a family member who suffers from seizures, and there was really no cure, but they found a medical physician who basically changed the context of the way that they saw that condition, and they basically, the entire family changed their lifestyle. They started eating vegan, raw, they started meditating, they started doing yoga, they started doing all kinds of things all at once, which actually made it a little difficult for them to actually pinpoint the exact things that were working in the family member's case, but they basically did a radical overhaul, the entire family, of the lifestyle, and very, very good results, very, very powerful results. No seizure for over 4 years. Very powerful. When you don't know how to prevent it, when you don't know how to control it, you know, being able to overhaul your lifestyle and have those kinds of results, powerful stuff. So we're going to be talking to Ruthann. Now, again, she has 4 terminal degrees. I believe there's a legal degree. There is some sort of alternative medicine, some kind of interdisciplinary, and she's also CEO'd multiple healthcare information technology companies. So absolutely brilliant guest. I am looking forward to having Ruthann on the talk this week, and actually this may be some premium content that we do this week, and she may be actually talking about the talk in a week or two. So I've got a couple of scheduling things on my end, but that's what the schedule looks like for me. Now, coming back to you, Rich McBain, music educator extraordinaire, we're going to pivot over here and talk about the highlights from 2 weeks ago. Again, I took a week off because I'm thinking, how do we make this better? How do we make it appeal to more people while going deeper into the people just like you that want to give a branded talk today, someday, maybe not today. I don't know if I don't want to give a branded talk today because I haven't been working on a talk recently, but someday you want to do this. So how do I go deeper and deeper? Couple of big improvements. I probably should have told you this already. Number one, I have outlined and even done a test audio of my course, How to Get Your Talk Accepted. And that is going to be a free course on the website, okay? Making sure it's the best that it can possibly be. Now, the infographic is already available on BeTheTalk.com, and you just sign up for it, give me your email, and then you've got this great 5 habits. It's not steps, because this is bigger than just having, getting accepted for Idea City or, TEDx or Q Ideas or any kind of branded talk like that puts the idea first. It's not 5 simple steps, okay? And that's one of the reasons why I'm not I don't coach people, and I don't, people are always assuming that I use this podcast to coach people and to make it, charge money for coaching. I believe that if you want to give a talk, you absolutely do need to hire a coach. And I have interviewed so many great TEDx coaches on this show that, there are just so many people for me to refer other people to that why would I ever need, want to compete with other great coaches in that way? So what I've done instead is I just said, hey, there are habits that you need to cultivate. They're the same 5 habits that I did to get accepted at the event that I closed out. Not even, I think it might have been about 9 months ago at this point. So they're habits, not simple steps, because it's not all that simple. They're habits that you need to cultivate, really almost like a lifestyle. So I have those 5 habits right there. It's an infographic. I'm getting people all the time, and friends who are saying, hey, I'm back in town, Nathan. I'd love to talk with you. I'd love to pick your brain, about giving a TED talk and all this stuff. Folks, I'm not an organizer. I don't have an event for you to audition for. I'm not, I produce a podcast 7 days a week. I've recorded over 200 episodes with over 200 alumni of branded talks, such as mostly TEDx, but now 2 TED speakers with millions of views on their TED Talks. I have produced this precisely so that when you reach out to me and say, hey, Nathan, can we get some coffee? I'd love to ask you questions. Guess what? I'm 7-day-a-week podcast. Listen to the podcast. That's my point. Listen to the podcast, okay? Please don't force me to be the bad cop here. I want to be the good cop. That's why I've created hundreds of hours of content at this point. Not all of it's released yet. I've got some of it backlogged, but I've recorded hundreds of hours of content so that you can learn from what I have discovered. And of course, certainly I'm gonna start compiling this in due time as more, resources and resourcefulness comes in and I get more clarity from people. Now, what do you want to reach out to me instead? Don't ask me to basically, coach you on this. Ask me within the content that I've produced. You could say, hey, Nathan, I listened to episode number 141, and here's what I didn't understand, or here's what I liked, or here's what I needed to hear that you didn't go there, Nathan. I really wanted to hear this, or I want to hear more about this question, or I'm getting ready to give my talk or get it accepted, or I got accepted, and I'm really listening for this piece, and which of your guests talked to this piece, and could you speak to this piece more in the future? Those are the kinds of questions, those are the kinds of dialogues that are going to help you out, because I'm going to listen and respond to that stuff. I am going to, tweak everything that I'm doing as I discover more of what you need and want, other than me just to sit down and have a Skype chat with you. If you absolutely do need to ask me questions, and I have to be the one to answer that, there's a place where you can sign up for a 12-minute interview. It is not free. It's my equivalency rate. It is my hourly rate, but it's only 1/5 of the hourly rate if you really want to sit down and have my attention for 12 minutes. Why do I do that? Because I'm producing a 7-day. I miss one day, folks. I miss one day. And y'all know, I miss one day, and the whole thing, okay, it doesn't really grind to a halt, but, everybody knows. There's some pressure there, okay? So I'm got my head down, I'm working on this, and I'm happy to do it because I'm producing the tips, tools, and techniques that you need to be able to change the world with your talk. Why do I do a week preview? Why do I do a highlight reel? Here, it's not a reel yet, but it's a highlight review. Why do I do this? Because people really are changing the world, and I want to give you kind of the highlights of what I learned, what I discovered. Now, back over to you, Rich, okay? Last week, my final guest has won the 1,000 Views Award this week, and I am looking around because I had all this stuff down somewhere, and I am looking. I think I put it in the description, and now you're looking at the description, and I don't have that list. That was my list. Actually, I think I might still be able to paste it, copy and paste somewhere, which would be very, very good, because I really need to look at the rest of this list to know the names so that I can speak with intelligence. And so that I can speak in a manner that gives you the confidence that I know what I'm talking about, because right now I don't have that list in front of me. And right now, even as we speak, I'm opening windows that are very, very slow to open, and my cursor is going in the wrong place. And guess what? I lost. I lost my list. So what am I doing? I'm going to have to go into Facebook. And I'm going to see what you guys are looking at right here, and apologize for doing that, but that's where my list went, folks. You sign up with these third-party software things, and you put your little list in there in the description, and then it publishes that, and then you can't see it anymore. And now I see myself within a window, and I don't want that to jack up my RAM too much. So I'm going to close back out. Go back into a Gmail where it's pasteable. Oh, just a couple more moments, my friends. Just a couple more moments. Okay. So we had Anita Collins is this week's winner, and sometimes there are multiple winners. Like when I instituted last time, I think a couple of weeks ago, the 1K award, the 1KClub. It's a club. It's not really an award. I do give a little certificate. This is really about giving all branded speakers, frankly. I have another course about Get Promoted, okay, and that is an inside course. If you get accepted on BeTheTalk, you apply and you're accepted to give your interview and go behind your talk. I have created a second course that helps you get maximum promotion value out of this content, this podcast episode that I'm bringing you on. It's really, I view this podcast not just as a learning experience for Talk Universe, not just as a way for me to learn a lot, and not just a way for people to share and to tell their stories, but it's really another opportunity to drive more awareness, more views, more likes, more shares, back to their original branded talk. It is very, very important. So I have a course called Get Promoted, which shows you, as a future guest, if I accept you, how to get the most mileage out of not just your talk, but about our interview behind the talk, and really my understanding of my own role as someone who is almost like a wingman. You notice I am all in for my guests. I am promoting, I am rah-rahing, I am complimenting, I am edifying everything that I can. It's because I've got amazing, amazing guests. All right. My final guest from last time was Anita Collins, who called in from the future, 18 hours from the future, 18 hours ahead of me. It was the evening here in Delaware, and it was the morning in Australia. And it was Anita Collins, who has an interdisciplinary PhD in some sort of neuroscience as well as musical education. Very fascinating piece. So uniquely qualified to speak on what music does to the brain. Now, a day or two after her talk, it got some shares, got a couple of shares, got 200 or 300 views, but then the next week, last week, it just took off. She's got, I think, 29 or 30 shares and just under 2,000 views as we speak right now. So a solid 1KClub. That's for 1,000 or more Facebook Live views of our Facebook Live interview. She takes the cake, and she joins a very distinguished list of other 1KClub members right there. Okay. All right, let's talk about the highlights from last time. I learned so much. I learned from Michael Grome, and I had some technical issues, which is why the first few did not have a Facebook Live. I was trying my darndest to do that split screen, and it wasn't cooperating the way that I wanted it to. So Michael Grome, he talked about the dialectic life, and he talked about a dialectic is like when you have two opposing points of view. And it was really based on the administration and the crazy election we just had in the United States. It was almost 2 years ago, about a year and a half years ago, that we're all still recuperating from, folks. If you're like me, I didn't vote for either of them. I'm just going to tell, I didn't vote for either of them. I just thought the whole thing was crazy. I thought it was all ridiculous. And we're still recuperating. So it's always interesting to talk about dialectics with Michael Grome like we did. After that, we talked to Kristen Smedley. Her talk was all about what she learned from her two sons, raising her two sons who were born or became, I don't remember the exact details just because so many people I interview, but her sons were blind. And so she had to raise these sons who were blind, and all the fear and all of the things that she had to do. I thought it had great application to anyone who has any kind of, and the politically incorrect term is disability, and we don't use that anymore. Some people, use special needs. Some people do not like that term. I am aware, so I'm just going to use the politically incorrect old school term disability, because we all know that there are special abilities that are there. But if you're raising children or have anyone special in your life in that way that are compensating for those and finding new ways to be able to accommodate themselves, or raising children who are, you're going to want to check out Kristen's podcast episode when that drops. Again, had technical issues with Kristen with the Facebook Live. After that, Jim Cathcart, amazing speaker. This guy was among the best of the best. I believe his talk had, I think it may have had 1 million views. And Jim had just come back from China. We were talking about all kinds of empowering content in terms of his interview. It was all based on his talk, and just really how to believe in yourself is the title of his talk, and just dovetailed into all kinds of amazing additional content as well. Ernest Barbaric is a fellow podcaster. He was a lot of fun, and I finally got the Facebook Live thing working with Ernest, and I'm glad that I did, because I enjoyed talking with him so very, very much. And let's see here. I am just looking for titles. It's so funny because some of these have the title and some of these don't. And anyway, Ernest is on Facebook Live, or he has a Facebook Live recorded piece right there, and you'll want to check out what we were discussing on the Facebook Live. After that, Leanne Spencer. We talked about how fit is more relevant than fat or obese or anything else. Its fitness is more important than the poundage or how many stone you weigh, or as they say in the UK. Really fascinating, because she really knows her stuff. We talked about the science behind it. We talked about, the misperception that if you appear thin, and some people might still think that I appear, on the thinner side. I don't know that I can even really say that, but I am not as fit as I need to be. It's about getting fit, and it's really about systems thinking to put it all together. After that, Corey Poirier. Now, Corey was amazing because he's interviewed over 4,000 people. Now, when people tell me, oh, you interview so many people, you interview 10 or 12 people in a day, no way. I look at somebody like Corey, who's interviewed 4,000 people, and it absolutely can and will be done, and he's done it. And it's huge. So we talked about that. We talked about stand-up. We talked about how he views the world and how he's able to empower himself just by framing and reframing things in a positive way to motivate himself to do more things and to make an impact in that way. After that, Ellen Goodwin. Now, this was a lot of fun. I was a little tongue-in-cheek here. I was saying, you got to share this Facebook Live because it's so important to get the word out. What's the word? It's about how dive bars can change your life. It's not about saving the environment or, outlawing, human trafficking or all those serious stuff. It's about dive bars changing your life. So we just had a little fun chat about that. It was actually a really great way to be able to connect and be able to laugh and be able to just be kind of human. Nothing brings people together like a good meal, or in some cases, a good drink. If you're not in a program or in recovery from that, then you probably want to go to your local Starbucks and have a good drink over there, or non-branded, independently owned coffee store chain. So it was a lot of fun talking to Ellen Goodwin about that. Eric Fletcher was on next. Eric was very interesting because it was very similar to Kristen Smedley's talk, because Eric is legally blind. And so Eric has had to, and I still don't understand how he does this, but he uses other senses when he's in a familiar place. He actually has what he believes is very similar to a sense of sight, using his other awareness and senses. And so we talked a little bit about that, but we talked about how it was really about metrics, and how when you find a different way to define and measure things, you're not locked into someone else's box. So he has a personal, compelling story, but his actual talk was on something that's related to all of us, and labeling, and somebody else labeling, and so it makes it even that much more amazing. After that, Becky Blanton. The Facebook Live is available for you to see. Homelessness. She was part of the working homeless, which is the vast majority of homeless people are working homeless. Becky Blanton, my first ever TED alumni, not a TEDx, but a TED alumni, and she was talking about the talk, about being on the TED stage. It was actually, I mean, you see me picking my jaw up off the floor in this interview because it was basically her first ever public speaking experience was on the TED stage. I still get a kick out of this. It was just absolutely amazing. After that, Melanie Johnson. Now, what I love about Melanie is it's all about documenting your life and all about making memories and being able to share your expertise by recording what you know. And so she had such a very compelling way in which she's been able to do that. I am trying to...
Hi, and I'm so happy to be here today. Hey, you all look great, especially after lunch.
I have so many windows that it blocks the things that I'm finding. Leaving a Legacy is the title of her talk. The time is now. It's really about documenting your expertise, which is something that if you know me, you know I've literally interviewed people in lunch lines in expensive conferences to try to document their expertise. I was a little too eager. Should have just started a podcast 7 years ago. I mean, I would be so ahead of the game if I had just started a podcast to ask people questions instead of doing weird things in the lunch line. But anyway, I love what Melanie talks about because she has a system that works for her clients. And if you'll just take her system, it'll work for you too as well. It really will. So Melanie was a lot of fun in terms of that. Who did we have next? Alan P. Brown. Alan talks about, do you have it? It's the number one most undiagnosed thing in adults. In a large percentage of incarcerated individuals, men in particular, undiagnosed, do you have it? It's ADHD, adult attention deficit disorder. And so Alan and we talked about that. Now, Alan is, pretty soon I'm going to give him an honorable mention for the 1K Club because he's got about 600 views right now. Just a few more shares, and he's going to get in that club. Is because he's an absolutely dynamic guest. You're going to love what we talk about. You're going to love his own personal, authentic backstory as well. And then finally, I already talked to you about our 1K Club winner for this week, Anita Collins, and it was all about music and the brain. And so I've already shared about that. There are some improvements here, folks. There's a lot that we're doing in the future. And, and actually, just from a leadership perspective, I've learned this from so many great leaders that I've been around. Many of them I call friends. And I had to really just kind of dig deep inside, folks, because when you raise the level of what you're doing, pretty soon you have to raise the level of things that other people are doing too. And you have to raise the bar, not just for yourself. And I tried to raise the bar on me first. You can't see this right now, but I've actually moved into a new office here. I've gotten better equipment. I've got a better rig over here that you can't see right here. I've got stuff at the ready. I've got knobs and dials. I've got a new mixer over there that I'm getting ready to hook up. I'm upgrading what we're doing on every single level, and I'm upgrading the format of what we're doing. And so I've raised the level on myself, but I'm also raising the level on my guests. And the hard thing about that is, it's kind of hard to do that because it inconveniences other people and it raises things to a higher level. And you've got to be willing, just like I decided that I would be willing as a leader, to upgrade the level of what we're doing. And the future guests that are coming on the show, not necessarily only this week, but the weeks after that, they know because they've had to reschedule. I had to move my schedule around to make and accommodate this new format that's going to allow us to touch more people, share more stories, go deeper than we ever have before, without wearing myself out either. And I haven't ever been flat worn out, but I have gotten to the point where I know where my limits start to wear out. And if you're curious, it's about it's about the 8-hour mark. It's about actually about the 7-hour mark where I'm up to interviewing about 13, 14 people in a row with no break. That's about what I've discovered. My brain starts getting real fuzzy, and actually that's only about 6.5 hours, 6 hours in a row. That's where my limits are. So I started taking that into account, and I said, I don't want to be the hero here and do heroic things every single time, but I do believe, and I know there's a way that I can, raise the level on what I'm doing as an interviewer, so I'm not getting loopy after 12 or 13 people, and I can also raise the level on the guests and how the guests come to the table and stuff. So I'm doing that. I'm implementing it. Much of it, the overwhelming majority of it has been very, very, very positive. And the rest of it I haven't really seen yet because I've got a bunch of email. I've got like 30 emails that are kind of a consequence of some of these upgrades. And I'm sure not all of them are going to be overwhelmingly positive. And there are real legitimate considerations. There are people in Australia that are coming on the show. And I had a very narrow band of time slots, for instance, that I'm going to expand to include more. But there are all kinds of legitimate concerns as well. And I'm waited until after doing the Facebook Live to start going through those administrative details and all of that. Hey, thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the break last week. Full steam ahead this week. It's a light week this week, only 7 interviews. And then next week is going to be on the lighter side as well. And then as we start getting into the new format in July, and as I'm more aware of my capabilities, we're going to start bulking up again. And I am just looking forward to what we have ahead. Thank you so much for joining me. And we'll see you on the talk this week, everybody. Take care.